So, here, this will work. Okay, so right now the circuit's not doing anything because obviously I don't have a complete circuit yet, nothing's plugged in. So let's take, I've got, what do I do with it? Well, crap. I just misplaced a part. That's okay. Oh, here it is. Okay. So I've got here, go ahead and get out, let's see, one 10K and one 330 ohm resistor. Okay. And we'll need the 10K for the transistor and the 330 for an LED. Okay. All right. So let's get the LED in first. And for reasons that'll become clear later, I'm going to put it way the heck over here on the far right. And I need to have power to it, okay, and ground. Now, I'm going to go ahead and ground it with the 330 resistor, okay, and I'm going to do that by plugging it in to the ground rail and to the minus side of the LED, okay. Now, it's not going to light up because I don't have it connected to plus 5 volts. And if I did, I could just plug this in and do plus 5 volts, and of course it turns on, okay? All right, so I'll remove that. So right now I just have the ground side with the resistor, but not the plus 5 volts, so it's just gonna sit there because I haven't actually completed a circuit yet. Okay, and why I put it all the way the heck over there will become clear as we go on with this, okay? All right, now let's deal with one of the transistors. Okay, so I'm going to take one of my transistors. Okay, now look at the flat side of it and just double check. Um, there's really, really tiny letters, and you kind of have to rotate it a little bit in the light because it can be kind of difficult to see. But you should see kind of in, it should say 2N 2222A. Okay. Okay. And oh, by the way, which kind of transistors, which baggie should you have opened, or should you get the transistors out of? The BJT ones, the N BJTs. Okay. The FETs we'll use later, like not today, but later on. Okay. So the NPNs are all 2222As. Okay. And if you see something else, that means that the wrong part has gotten in the bag or you've mixed them up accidentally. Okay. All right. So make sure you've got the 2222A. All right. So it's got, of course, the 3 pins on it. And I've got the front, the flat side facing the camera. All right. So the 3 pins are what, and what from left to right. What's the middle pin? The base. What's the left-hand pin? It's the collector. And the right-hand one is the emitter, okay? Now, by the way, that's specific to NPNs. PNPs, it's actually backwards, just to keep you on your toes, okay? But anyway, so got that, and I'm going to plug it in just somewhere kind of here in the middle. It doesn't really make a difference. I'll say, how about there, okay? All right, now, one of the mistakes that a bunch of guys in the last time did is remember how are the top and the bottom rails go horizontally, but what about all the stuff in the middle? They go vertically, okay? So I need all 3 of those pins to be on separate columns, otherwise I'm going to short circuit things, okay? So it should look like that if you look at it kind of from the front. Okay, does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. Now, then I'm going to take my 10K and I'm going to connect it to the rail that's got pin 2 on it, which was the top one, and connect that to the base. Okay, so if I use my little pointy object, okay, or rotate it a little bit, Can you guys see? So what is the resistor connecting between? It's connecting between this rail, which has pin 2, and the middle pin, the base on my transistor. Okay, so good. Yes. The front side is facing me. Yes. Okay. So if I tilt it right, the front side is towards uh, the bottom as I have it facing me. Okay. Is that good? We got it. We uno. Okay. Now, obviously, nothing's happening yet because we're not finished with the circuit. Okay. The next thing I need to do is the base on this transistor needs to be connected to power. Where's plus 5 volts? That's my power. The very, very top row. Okay. So I'll take plus 5 volts from here and I'll connect it to the collector of the transistor. Okay. So again, there's 3 pins on the transistor: collector, base, emitter, if the front side is facing you as you move from left to right. Okay, good. Now we're still not finished, right? So it's just sitting there, nothing's happening. Okay, the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take kind of a longer wire and I'm going to connect the emitter of the transistor over to the positive side of the LED. Okay, so that's the right-hand pin of the transistor over to the long leg pin of the LED. Because remember, how do you know which way to plug the LED in? The long side is on the positive side, the short side is the ground side. Okay? And if you get it backwards, what's going to happen? It just won't turn on, right? And why is that? Because an LED, the D stands for what? The D in LED stands for diode, and what do diodes do? Yeah, they're one way, right? Electricity can only go through the one direction. Okay, now contrast that with something like the resistor. If you flip the resistor around, does it matter? No. Okay, so there are some electronic components that need to be put in a particular orientation, and there are others where it doesn't matter. Resistors are one where it doesn't matter. LEDs, it does. Okay, so what do we observe the behavior is of our circuit? Okay, so what's happening? It's blinking. Okay, now y'all's is probably blinking in a slightly different pattern. How is yours blinking? Faster than mine, and that's because my Arduino is running a different program. Okay, but so let me open up the Arduino program and um, restore it to the way it y'all's has it, so that we're all on the same page. Okay, one quick second, and because I need to change some of the code. Okay, so while I'm fixing the code, you guys can double check that you've got everything good. Oops. Okay, so let me put the code kind of over on the side here so we can all see it. Um, okay, so this is the program that you guys were running. So let me upload this one to my board. Okay, so now it's on my board. Okay, so what do we notice about the red LED? And y'all should be doing the same thing. It's on for a second, and then it's off for a second. Yes? Okay, why is that happening? Okay, pin 2, we have programmed to be high for a second and low for a second. High here means 5 volts, low means basically 0 volts. Okay, so that we can treat that basically as on and off respectively. Okay, so the transistor, right? How does the transistor work? If I apply a small current to the base, it comes out the emitter, very small. What does that do? It induces a much larger current to come from the collector out the emitter. Okay, so we remember that from last time? Okay, so essentially, we've made this thing into a switch. Okay, so is there current, so we've made the transistor is functioning as a switch. If we apply a small amount of current to the base, it's as if the transistor is open or on. Okay, and a large amount of current flows through it and then goes over to the LED, flows through the LED to ground, and we see the light and everything's cool. Okay, does that make sense? All right, so that by itself is not particularly exciting, right? Because it's just like the light is doing exactly what pin 2 did. And so you might say, wait a minute, Dr. McKinney, why are we bothering with all this transistor crap when all I could do is take this, connect it straight to pin 2, and it does the exact same thing, right? So right now, it looks like that transistor is just completely superfluous, right? And it is for right now. Okay, so you guys see the sort of issue here? Okay, so now I'm going to add something to it. So before I do, let's make sure, are we all in this state, basically, where it's blinking once per second and like I've got it there with exactly one transistor? If not, raise your hand so I can take a look. See you play. Okay, let's see what the issue is. Okay, plus 5 volts, ground, pin 2. Oh, you've got these switched, which doesn't really make a difference, but okay, and then you have the transistors backwards. Okay, so the transistor should be this way. Get in there. Okay, and then you've got plus 5 volts to this one. You're just one row off here. Yeah. Okay, and then this one's connected to pin 2. And this is also off by one row. It has to be, sometimes these are a little sticky. There. And then that's okay. That's interesting. Okay, so the LED works. And oh, I think this one was plugged into pin 4, the other pin. Okay, let me look at this. Here's a 222. Here, grab another transistor. Maybe we just got a bad one. That sometimes happens. So the first thing you have to do is kind of bend the pins a little bit so they fit. Okay, so we got this one here. Okay, and then I disconnected the power. Oh, did we upload the code to the board? Let's do it again just to make sure. because it's possible that the circuit's perfect, but if we never uploaded that to the board, then it's just sitting there. That's interesting. Oh, it's because I'm an idiot, and then I switched them back. Okay, this one was supposed to be pin 2. There it goes. Okay, yeah, you're good. All right, looks good. Any other issues? The corner. Okay, let's see. Okay, pin 2, pin 4. Ground is the yellow one. White here is the plus 5 volts. Okay, you've got, okay, so this is backwards. This one should be there, and that one should be here. Okay, and then let's check the LED. You got power and ground. Okay, so this is the long side, which it's hard to see, right, because it's bent. So the LED was actually backwards. The short side should be on the ground side. And then I need to scoot that green wire over one spot. And yeah, okay, so now you're good. Okay, so we've all got it. 1 second on, 1 second off. Yes? Okay, so I'm going to add, we're going to add a second transistor to the mix. Okay, so for right this instant, let me pull the yellow wire. Okay, and so obviously nothing's going to happen. I'm going to put a second transistor here, and just like the first one, what am I going to put to its base? My resistor. What kind? The 10K. Okay. And what am I going to connect it to? The base of the transistor, but I'm going to make one change. Instead of going to pin 2, I'm going to put this one on the pin 4 rail. Okay, so that's a very minor tweak. Okay, is that all right? Again, obviously nothing's working yet. Okay, why did I put this one on pin 2 instead of pin 4? Well, we've already got something controlled by pin 2, so yeah. Okay, so that's this one right here. I've got the middle pin here is connected to the bottom rail, the blue one, which is what pin 4 is connected to. Okay, so we good with that? All right, so almost exactly the same as the first one. Okay, so good. Next, my second transistor, okay, so that's this one here. Right now, nothing is connected to its collector and nothing is connected to its emitter. I've only connected something to the base. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the emitter of the first transistor and connect that to the collector of the second one. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, so do that real quick. And I need another couple of wires. Yeah, so the caption in the code on the notes, if you click the caption, it'll actually just take you straight to the code. Although I think I actually accidentally overwrote one of them with a newer version. I need to go back and fix that. I was working on the notes this morning and I kind of realized I've been working on these things for a couple of years. I started this in the transistor stuff in fall of 19. And then what happened that next semester? Oh man, did that suck. Um, yeah, and as I've been reading these, I kind of wish I had like a time machine to go back and tell old me, like, hey, idiot, don't do it that way. Do it this way, it'll be better. Okay, so So what did I just add here with the yellow wire? I connected the emitter of the first transistor to the collector of the second. Good? We? Okay. Now, obviously, it's still not doing anything because I'm not finished with the circuit. Okay. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a wire and connect it from the emitter of the second transistor over to the LED. Okay. Okay. And you should notice absolutely nothing happening. Okay. We? Great. The last thing I need to do, and I'll explain maybe why later, is we're going to use a 1K resistor. So grab one of those out of its bag, okay? And I also need one more wire just for spacing reasons, okay? And so I'm going to put the 1K resistor connecting to ground and just there, okay? So nothing's connected to it except the ground side. And then I'll use a wire to connect it to something else in just a second. Okay, so grab a 1K and put it here. Okay, now, while we're on the subject of these resistors and their different resistances, how do you tell which one's which? Okay, there's the colored stripes, and I've managed to misplace them, but I've got little cheat sheets, and I'll put one in each of the buckets so that you can read the band pattern. However, you guys look at the resistors you've got in front of you. The bands are kind of hard to see, right? They're very small. The colors are pretty faint, not super easy. So what's the other way of doing it? Okay, you use the multimeter. Okay, and you read in the manual how to measure resistance, and then you use this, right? So what you do is put the resistor kind of on its own, plug one or touch one leg with one probe, the other leg with the other probe, and if you've got it on and in resistance mode, it will tell you the resistance. And then you need to kind of round because, so for example, if I measure the 10K resistance, it's not going to be exactly 10K. Okay, it might be like 9.9K or 10.1K, but basically it's 10K. Okay. 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 So again, still nothing happening. The very last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to also connect the emitter of the second transistor with this resistor that's going to ground. Okay. So two things are connected to the emitter of the second transistor: the LED stuff and this 1K that's going to ground. Okay. And yeah, because remember, everything along that column of 5 are internally connected. Okay. Now, nothing is happening. Okay. And there's a good reason for that. So for that, I'm going to pull out my next trick. Where did I put it? Oh, it's right in front of me. Okay. So the okay, so I need to switch the display from this to my iPad for a second. Okay, but we're cool? So what I want to do is sort of draw schematically what we've actually done here. Okay, you guys like the fancy fades to black and stuff? Yeah, yeah. Make sure to mash that subscribe button. Right, hit the bell. Okay, so what we've basically done is, so our first transistor has three pieces. Okay, the base in the middle, the collector up there, and the emitter there. Okay, and we've connected plus 5 volts straight to the collector. Okay. We also had pin 2 over here, and we connected that to the base. But what did we put in between there? A resistor. What's the diagram symbol for a resistor? Yeah, it's a wavy line. So just that. Okay. And what resistance did we use for that one? 10K. Okay. So that's our first transistor. Now, I also put a second transistor here. Okay. It also has a base, a collector, and an emitter. And what was connected to its base? Pin 4, also with the usual, 10K resistor. Okay. And then I came out the emitter and I did two things. One is I put a resistor to ground. And what was its resistance? 1K. And then I came over here to an LED. And I also had a small resistor to ground, and this was a 330. Okay, so in a schematic sense, this is what we've wired up. Okay, now obviously this doesn't look exactly like it does on your breadboard, but in a schematic sense, this is what we wired up. Okay, does that make sense? All right, so let's kind of focus in just for a second on that first transistor, okay? Which before we added the second one into the circuit, we saw that that transistor basically controlled whether or not the light was on or off, okay? Under what conditions is that transistor, quote, on, allowing current to flow through it? When what? When what was true? Okay, I had to have a current going to the base. And when was there current going to the base? When pin 2 was on. Okay, so the first transistor, think of it like a door. Okay, it's open when pin 2 is on, and it's closed when pin 2 is off. Okay, and the only way current can get through it is if it's open. Yes? Okay. What about the second transistor? Okay, so this one, under what circumstances is it open? Almost. Yeah. Just when pin 4 is on. Okay, so the first transistor is controlled by pin 2. The second transistor is controlled by pin 4. Okay, now imagine you've got two doors in front of you. Under what circumstance can you walk through both of them? They both have to be open, right? So when are they both open? Yeah, when pin 2 and pin 4 are on. Okay, what about if one of them's open but the other one's not? Can you get to the end? Nope. What about if both of them are closed? Nope. Okay. So under what circumstances should the light turn on? When both pin 2 and pin 4 are on, and under all other circumstances, it should not turn on. Okay, so let's go back to here. So right now with this program, are we going to ever see this work? Why not? We've never told pin 4 to do anything. And the way the Arduinos are set up is if you don't explicitly turn something on, it stays off. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to modify this code slightly. Okay, and let me slide this guy over. And so what did I do to the code? I basically just copied and pasted, and then let me get rid of this. Okay, so the first thing I had to do was basically tell the Arduino, hey, in addition to pin 2 being an output, I will also want pin 4 to be an output. okay, because otherwise it's not going to do anything with it. Okay, so up there in the setup part, I just basically copied and pasted and changed the 2 to a 4. Okay, and then the second thing I had to do, so why do I have so much more code here to get pin 4 also turning on? Okay, did I need all this more code just to add pin 4 being on? No, but let's think about it. How many different combinations of pins 2 and 4 being on and off respectively are there? There's 4 combinations, right? That's why there's basically double the code, okay? Because they both could be on. One could be on and the other off. That could happen in 2 different ways. And then they both could be off. Yes? Okay, so it's the same kind of math as if I give you 2 coins to flip, how many different arrangements could you get? 4. Heads, heads, tails, 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 heads, heads, tails, right? 4 of them, okay? All right, so all I did was copy and paste, basically, and change some of the 2s to the 4s, and then just make sure that I had all 4 possible combinations. So I've got both high, one low, the other high, and both low. Okay. And then, of course, 1 second delays in between everything just so we can see this actually happening. Okay, so minor modification, nothing really horrible. Okay, let me send this code to the board and let's see what happens. Okay, so what should happen? Okay, it's going to be on for 1 second and then off for 3 seconds in a row. Why is it on for only 1 second and off for 3? Well, when is the light going to be on? Only when both of the the transistors are on, and that only happens when both pins 2 and pin 4 are high. We waited a second, so there's our second of being on, and then we have 3 seconds worth of states where it's off, okay, because the condition for it being on was not met. Okay, so does that make sense? Okay, so here I've built a circuit. Okay, the LED is sort of representing my output, but I've built something that takes in 2 inputs, has a single output, and combines those inputs in a very specific way. When do I get an output? What has to be true about the 2 inputs? They both have to be on, okay? And what's the key word for this? And, okay? So when is the output on? When the first input and the second input are on. Okay, does that make sense? All right, now, the word and means exactly what you think it does, right? You all speak English, I hope. Maybe you speak English poorly. Um, maybe you speak English, uh, I don't know. Maybe you've got like a really awesome old fashioned Texas accent. No? Well, maybe you speak with a British accent. Yes. Come on, fat man. Yeah. Um, yeah. So the word and, right? When is an and statement true? Okay, so if I ask you, are you in computer science and math class this semester? What would you answer? Why not? Because you're not in math. You are in computer science, but you're not in math. There's plenty of you who are in computer science. I mean, you're all sitting here, and you happen also to be in a math class this semester. Okay. For some of you, that's true. For others of you, it's not. But if I ask you, are you in computer science and math? Do you have to think to say no? You know what the word and means, and you just answer accordingly. Okay. Um, okay. What other ways could we combine 2 inputs to get a single output using English words that we all know what they mean? Okay. What does or mean in English? Are you in computer science or math this semester? The answer is yes. Why? You happen to be in computer science. Would the answer have still been yes if you, let's say, who's in both math and computer science this semester? Okay, so let's say I ask you the same question. Are you in math or computer science? Yes. Okay. So both of them being true still makes the question of or true. Okay, now let me change the question a little bit. So, would you like apple pie for dessert or chocolate pie? What is my implication when I ask that question? If you say, I'd like both, what am I liable to do? Slap you and not give you either, and send you to your room, right? And you're grounded for a week. No? Okay, so, but or in that context, what did that mean? Yeah, it can only be one or the other, but not both. Okay, that is a different meaning of the word or. Now, does this drive you guys crazy that maybe you never thought about it until this instant, but that we use the word or in two different ways in English, and I think pretty much any other language? Yes? Okay. Is that good enough for us in computer science to have two different ways or two different meanings of the same word? No, that is bad. Okay. All right. So this, what we have constructed is an AND gate, and we'll talk about its symbol later. Okay. But what we just talked about with the OR question is there's two meanings of it. EOR, which stands for inclusive OR, and XOR, which stands for exclusive OR. So are you in math or computer science? I meant the inclusive version there. Okay. Do you want chocolate or apple? The implication by the context is that I meant the exclusive one. Okay. And or in computer science, if there's not a modifier, it means the inclusive case. Okay. So we will use or and XOR. You sometimes do see EOR in, well, okay. If you want to program an 8-bit Nintendo, the language you have to use for that does, instead of typing OR, you type EOR, and the reason is because every instruction has to have 3 letters, just because that way it lines up all nicely, and OR unfortunately only has 2. Okay, so anyway, right. So we've built a circuit that does the function of AND. Okay. How do you think we might have to modify this circuit? And let's talk schematic first before worrying about the breadboard part of it, to do an OR instead of an AND. Okay, so why don't you guys talk amongst yourselves for a second and come up with an idea. How could we change the circuit schematic so that we would get an OR function instead of an AND function? Okay, and when I say OR, I mean inclusive OR. So both of them being true is okay. XOR is a bit more complicated to wire. All right. Do we have any ideas? Let's talking. All right. So what's an idea for how I could turn this thing into an OR gate? Yeah. Uh. Okay. No. Right. We'll leave the code exactly the same. So it's just the circuit that will change. Yeah. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this wire here, and instead of going to the second transistor, I'm going to go over here. And then this first transistor has to get power from somewhere. So where could I get that? Plus 5 volts. Okay, so this is the difference in electronics of wiring things in parallel versus in series. Okay, originally, how did we have it wired? One went directly to the other. That's called series. Okay, if I had, I mean, with our doors example, that'd be two doors, one right after the other. Okay, what would the parallel example be in terms of doors? Two doors next to each other. Okay, so like you go over to Sparks and there's the two doors on the front. Doesn't matter which one you go through, you can still get in and get lunch. Yeah, that's an OR case. And so by changing the wiring, I've basically made it so that you could go through the first door, or you could come through the second door, or maybe you could go through both. Okay, um, with minimal change to the circuit. Okay, so real quickly, let's change that circuit. So let me go back to here. Okay, I'm going to move the code off of the screen to get it out of the way because it's the exact same code. We're not changing it. Okay, so what am I going to do? I'm going to take the emitter of the first transistor and connect it to the same place that the emitter of the second transistor is. So I'll put it here. Okay. And then the last thing I need to do is the second transistor is right now basically disconnected. So I need to put it to 5 volts. Okay, so I've got plus 5 volts there and plus 5 volts here. Okay, so now let's watch it. Okay, what's it doing now? It's 3 seconds on and 1 second off. Okay, now let me move the code back over here. Okay, and let's think about why that makes sense. Under what conditions do you go through? Uh, Under what conditions did you just get in to eat lunch? You had to go through one of the doors, right? So one of the two doors had to be open. Now maybe both were open, okay? But under what condition do you not get into the lunchroom? When they're both closed. And when are they both closed? When both pin 2 and pin 4 are off. Okay, so this is now a logical OR gate. Okay, so we built an AND gate, we built an OR gate. Now, how many of you guys in high school saw logic gates in some way, shape, or form? Maybe you didn't build them out of individual transistors, but you saw them as like a single piece. Okay, yeah? Are there more than AND and OR gates? Are there other gates besides those? Probably. I mean, that's kind of I wouldn't be asking the question if there weren't, right? Um, well, what other gates should there be? Well, at minimum, wouldn't it be nice if there was an exclusive OR gate, right? A circuit that implemented the chocolate or apple pie version instead of the calculus or computer science version. Okay. Turns out to actually build one of those is a little more complicated. It takes like 5 or 6 transistors to do it, and we'll see why later. Okay, why it takes so many. What other logic gates were there, or would make sense? What other? Um, okay, and so to answer that question, what other words in the English language involve statements that are either true or false? Not, okay, is the other word that we use in the English language, right? What does not do? It does the opposite of whatever the thing is, okay? So if I say today is Tuesday, okay, that statement is false. If I say today is not Tuesday, that statement is true, right? So the not reverses it, okay? Um, what other words do you have that combine two pieces of information? We had and or. Okay, we do have but, yeah. Nor is the one I'm thinking of, right? So I could say you are neither in computer science nor are you in math. Okay, now in English we have to use both the word neither and the word nor because it just doesn't sound right otherwise. Okay, but nor, what does nor mean? Not or. It's the opposite of or. Okay. Similarly, we don't use this in English, but if you can have and you can have not, could you have not and? Would that make sense? Okay. What would it make sense to call that? How about NAND? Okay, for not and. Okay, so that gets us basically the fundamental seven of them: and, or, NAND, nor, XOR, and if we can have XOR, can we have not that? Okay, and then not. Okay, so there's seven. And if you want to use logical implication, that could be the eighth, but you can build it out of the others. Okay, so as we'll see, um, XOR is possible to be built out of other ones of these primitive pieces. Okay, so where we're going to go with this is to ramp this up to an XOR gate. Okay, which, like I said, will take 5 or 6, depending on exactly which way you do it, transistors. So obviously a lot more complicated of a circuit. There's going to be wires all over the freaking place. Okay, um, but we'll also talk about. So here, what kind of transistors were we using? BJTs. Okay. The other major category that we can use are the FET transistors, the field effect transistors, okay? And one of the ways that the field effect transistors get combined is in what's called a complementary way, CMOS for short, complementary metal oxide silicon semiconductor, field effect transistor, blah, blah, blah. Um, and what we'll do there is there will be, for every N type, there will be a corresponding complementary P type. And we'll arrange these very carefully in a very logical and elegant way. And that is the way that basically, since the mid 80s, every integrated circuit, well, probably 99% of them have been made, is using this sort of complement method. Okay, now we got more to do there. Okay, so does this kind of make sense? Were you all able to make the change to the circuit to get the OR gate working? It was real quick, right, from the AND. Okay, yes or no? Okay, so do not take all your circuit stuff apart. Leave it, okay, and put it back in the bucket. And now remember which bucket number you have and trade contact info with the people that are in your bucket group, okay? Because what are we going to do? I mean, we'll still do some stuff in class with these for the next week or so, okay? But how are you guys going to do, quote, homework with this stuff? Okay, you and your group mates are all going to be like in a Snapchat or a group chat or whatever the heck you guys do nowadays. A Snap, Face, Tick, YouTube, a Tick Tube. Okay, and you're going to be like, hey, let's get together tonight at 8 in the library and work on our circuit or whatever. Okay, and then Well, I just gave it away. Where are the circuit buckets going to live? Over in the library. And how do you get one? You go up to the circulation desk and you say to the handy dandy employee, hello, I would like to check out circuit bucket F or whatever. Okay, and then they will check them out. They'll have little barcodes on them. The last thing though, when you check them out, the checkout is good for 4 hours. If you need to recheck it out, which I can't imagine you're going to use these for 4 hours in a row, just take the bucket back up to the front desk and they can renew it. These are not to leave the library. Okay, got it? All right. See you guys on Friday.